All right, so let's dive into this whole TikTok thing.
Yeah.
It seems like it's everywhere these days. You sent me a ton of articles, social media discussions. Everyone's got an opinion. Should it be banned in the U.S.? Should it not? I mean,
It's a hot topic for sure.
it is. We've
Yeah.
got court rulings. We've got expert opinions. Even some TikTokers themselves are weighing in on this whole thing.
Yeah. And you know what's really fascinating to me is how it goes way beyond just like an app.
Yeah.
This is about free speech.
Right.
We're talking about national security. We're talking about the power of these big tech companies all on a global stage. It's kind of crazy.
It's a big deal. And and it's not just some theoretical debate.
Exactly.
This impacts, millions of users and creators.
Real people.
So let's try and unpack this a little bit, starting with this legal battle that's been going on. So a federal appeals court just upheld this law that basically says TikTok has to be sold by its Chinese owner, ByteDance, by January 19, 2025, or face a nationwide ban.
Yeah. And this isn't even the first time we've seen this, right? I mean, remember back in 2020?
Yeah.
Former President Trump tried something similar.
Yeah. It's like we're getting some serious deja vu here.
Total deja vu.
But TikTok's fighting back, right?
Oh, yeah, they are.
They're saying this law violates the First Amendment rights of its 170 million American users.
Which is a lot of people.
Yeah, they're saying the government can't just, shut down a platform where people are expressing themselves, connecting with each other.
Yeah, they're not backing down.
No, they're going all the way to the Supreme Court with this.
Yeah, and this is where it gets even more interesting because while the Biden administration seems to support this ban, President-elect Trump has actually said he wants to save TikTok.
Wow. It's really a head-scratcher considering his previous stance on this.
Right.
Some people are even speculating that TikTok might have helped him get elected, and that's why he's changed his tune.
Yeah, I saw that too.
But how could he actually overturn this ban if that's what he wants to do?
Well, he's got a few options. One, he could try and broker a deal for an American company to buy TikTok.
Okay.
Essentially taking it out of Chinese ownership. Or, he could delay the enforcement of the law.
Okay.
Give TikTok a little more time to figure things out.
So there's a lot of political maneuvering going on behind the scenes here.
Always.
But let's get back to, what could actually happen here? What are the consequences of this ban if it goes through? Like, what happens if TikTok actually disappears from the U.S.?
I mean, imagine no more updates. The app slowly becomes unusable. Millions of users and creators here in the U.S., they're suddenly cut off.
It'd be like a digital ghost town.
Right, like a huge disruption to the whole social media landscape as we know it.
But wouldn't people just find workarounds, like using VPNs to access it from other countries?
Some might try that, but VPNs aren't really a perfect solution. I mean, they can be slow, unreliable sometimes, and even raise their own security concerns.
Sure.
And honestly, it's not even clear if TikTok would even allow access from the U.S. if a ban is actually in place.
Right.
And think about this. What happens to all those creator funds?
Right, yeah.
Will U.S. users still get paid if the platform is banned? We're talking about a lot of livelihoods here.
So let's say, hypothetically, TikTok vanishes.
Okay.
Where do all those users go? They all just flock to Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts.
Yeah, probably those platforms would see a big surge in users, for sure. But it's also possible we see something totally new emerge.
Oh, interesting.
Like, remember Vine? Maybe this is a chance for a fresh U.S.-based app to come in and become the next big thing.
Yeah, that would certainly shake things up.
Definitely.
One expert on LinkedIn made a point that I hadn't even considered. They suggested that banning TikTok could actually benefit Meta.
Oh, wow.
The company that owns Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah,
A company that Trump, hasn't exactly been a fan of.
it's true.
So
That's a really good point.
it's kind of ironic.
Yeah, it highlights these unintended consequences
Exactly.
that can happen with these types of actions. Sometimes it's hard to predict how things will actually play out.
It's like a digital earthquake.
Yeah,
We might see these aftershocks that we haven't even considered yet.
for sure.
So let's zoom out a little bit here. What does this whole saga tell us about the role of social media in our society and, the challenges of trying to regulate it in this globalized world?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's complex. On the one hand, you've got these very legitimate concerns about data security, foreign influence. But on the other hand, you have this incredibly popular platform that has become a cultural phenomenon, especially for younger generations.
Yeah.
So it's this constant balancing act between security and, freedom of expression.
And the fact that public opinion on this seems to be shifting adds another layer to all of this.
Totally.
Back in 2023, polls showed that a majority of Americans supported a TikTok ban. And now those numbers are going down.
Interesting.
Maybe people are realizing that it's not just about, silly dances and trends.
Right.
This is a platform where small businesses are thriving, creators are building careers, communities are connecting.
Yeah, it's become so much more than just an entertainment app.
Yeah, and there's a real economic impact to consider.
Absolutely.
There was a report that we saw that mentioned TikTok Shop generated over $100 million in sales just on Black Friday in the U.S.
Wow.
That's a lot of money being pumped into the economy. A lot of people rely on this platform for their livelihoods.
Yeah, that's huge.
So it seems like we're at a crossroads here. On one hand, we have these concerns about data security and foreign influence. On the other hand, we have this wildly popular platform that's become a cultural phenomenon and a driver of economic activity.
Right.
So how do we balance those competing interests?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's something we're going to have to really wrestle with as technology keeps advancing. And these lines between our online and offline lives get blurrier and blurrier.
It's getting harder and harder to separate the two.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
it's fascinating.
It is fascinating, and I think this is just the beginning of the conversation. Oh, for sure. Yeah. It really makes you think, how much power should governments have over the apps we use every day?
Yeah, where do we draw the line between national security and freedom of speech?
And what about all the creators and small businesses who rely on TikTok for their income?
Right. Their livelihoods could be completely upended.
Totally. For a lot of them, it's not just entertainment. It's their main source of income.
Right.
They've built these audiences, honed their skills. They've created entire businesses around this one platform.
And if they have to start from scratch on a new platform, they might lose all that momentum, the connection with their followers.
Yeah, it's a huge risk.
It's like having the rug pulled out from under you.
Right. All that hard work, all that investment potentially gone overnight.
We were talking earlier about, Meta potentially benefiting from all of this. But wouldn't that create another problem? I mean, Facebook and Instagram, they already have so much control over social media.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trump's been critical of Meta in the past, but his actions could actually end up giving them even more power.
Right.
It shows how these decisions can have these unintended consequences that we don't always see coming.
Right. And it's really hard to predict how the social media landscape will evolve.
Absolutely.
It's like a digital earthquake.
Yeah.
We might see these aftershocks that we haven't even considered yet.
Speaking of aftershocks, this whole situation raises an even bigger question.
Okay.
If the U.S. bans TikTok, could other foreign-owned apps be next?
Ooh, that's a good point.
What about messaging apps, gaming platforms, even e-commerce sites?
Yeah, it's a scary thought. Where does it end?
Right.
And how do we make sure that these decisions are being made fairly transparently without stifling innovation or limiting, our access to information?
It's a tough balance to strike, for sure. On the one hand, we need to protect national security, safeguard user data, but we also don't want to create this digital iron curtain and isolate ourselves from the rest of the world.
It's not just about TikTok, is it? This is a debate about the future of the internet.
Exactly.
How we navigate this increasingly complex digital world.
It's a conversation that needs to include everyone, policymakers, tech companies, users, creators. We need to be thoughtful, informed, and make sure our voices are heard.
So let's get practical for a second. For our listeners out there, what can they do to stay informed and engaged in this conversation?
Well, first of all, be critical of the information you're consuming. There's a lot of misinformation out there, sensationalized headlines. So double-check your sources, look for evidence-based reporting, and don't just take everything at face value.
Right. And don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge assumptions, express your own opinions. This isn't a black and white issue.
Yeah.
There are a lot of shades of gray, and different perspectives are important.
Absolutely. And if you're a TikTok user, think about what this platform means to you. How would a ban affect your life, your creative expression, your connections with others?
Yeah, and even if you're not a TikTok user, don't just dismiss this as like a teenager issue.
Right.
The implications of this case are much broader.
For sure.
They affect all of us in some way.
This is about freedom of speech, data privacy, the role of technology in our society.
Yeah.
It's a conversation that we should all be paying attention to.
So what's next in this legal battle? We know TikTok is appealing to the Supreme Court, but we also have President-elect Trump kind of waiting in the wings.
Right.
With his own agenda.
With his own plans.
It feels like anything could happen at this point.
It's true. We're in uncharted territory here. Trump has said he wants to save TikTok, but we don't really know what that means in practice.
Right.
Will he try to broker a deal? Will he delay the ban? Will he just say that TikTok's current data security plan is good enough?
And remember, that plan, Project Texas, is supposed to address some of those national security concerns by storing U.S. user data on servers here in the U.S., managed by a U.S.-based company.
Right, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it's a complex system with multiple layers of oversight. But is it enough to satisfy lawmakers and intelligence officials?
That's the big question. And, the answer might depend on who you ask.
Right.
Some experts say Project Texas is a robust and comprehensive solution, while others are still skeptical. They say it doesn't fully address the potential for, data access by the Chinese government.
And then there's the whole issue of TikTok's algorithm.
Right.
Which some people believe could be used to promote certain content or suppress others.
Yeah, potentially influencing public opinion.
Exactly. It's a whole other level of complexity that just adds to the uncertainty surrounding TikTok's future.
Totally.
It seems like we're caught in this tug of war between these technological advancements, national security concerns, and this desire for, free expression and connection.
It's a tough knot to untangle.
It is.
And it's a reminder that technology doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's all intertwined with politics, economics, social dynamics.
Right.
And the decisions that we make about technology have real-world consequences.
Yeah.
They ripple through all aspects of our lives.
It's like we're looking through a kaleidoscope. Every time you turn it, you see a different pattern, a different perspective.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this conversation so fascinating and so challenging.
It's a puzzle with no easy answers. But I think by exploring all these different angles, by engaging in this thoughtful dialogue, by staying curious, we can hopefully navigate this complex terrain and create a digital future that works for everyone.
Yeah, a lot to think about there.
Yeah.
It really feels like even if TikTok survives this whole legal battle, it's a turning point. It's forcing us to confront some big questions about the internet, about who controls it, who benefits from it, and what role should governments even play in all of this?
Absolutely. This case could totally set a precedent for how other foreign-owned apps are treated going forward.
Right.
It raises the bar for transparency and accountability, and it just highlights how important it is to have, strong data privacy regulations in place.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, is this just the tip of the iceberg? I mean, technology is changing so fast.
Wow.
How do we even begin to create a regulatory framework that can keep up with all of that?
It's like trying to hit a moving target, right? But I think this is a wake-up call. It's time to really sit down and have a serious conversation about how we balance national security with individual freedoms in this, digital age. We got to find ways to protect our data without stifling innovation or limiting access to information.
Right. And that conversation needs to include everyone, not just, politicians and tech executives.
Totally.
We need to hear from users, creators, researchers, everyday people who are impacted by these decisions.
I completely agree. This isn't just an abstract legal battle. This is about real people's lives, their livelihoods, their ability to connect with others and express themselves creatively.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening out there, here's something to think about as you're, scrolling through your feeds today.
Okay.
Even if TikTok stays, this whole saga has really shone a light on the power dynamics at play in the digital world. Who controls the information that we see? Who's profiting from our data? And how do we make sure that our voices are heard in this ever-evolving landscape?
So those are the questions we need to keep asking.
Yeah.
And as the story continues to unfold, remember, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged. The future of the internet really depends on all of us.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
A lot to think about, a lot to unpack. But, hopefully our listeners feel a little bit more informed, a little bit more empowered to participate in this really crucial conversation.
I hope so.
As always, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening out there, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.